Welcome to Doing What Works, Innovations in Homeless Services, the podcast that takes a closer look at one of our community's most urgent challenges. I'm your host, Ashanti Blaze Hopkins, Interim Associate Dean at Santa Monica College's Center for Media and Design. Each episode will engage with experts, policymakers, and educators to uncover the history, explore effective policies, and highlight the efforts of those working to create change. Joining us on the podcast today is a first for us. We're excited to interview a student from Santa Monica College's inaugural cohort in its Homeless Services Certificate program. This student is quickly approaching the finish line of her coursework, and she's here today to share her experiences in the program and what may be next for her. Tamira Simpson, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Our first question for every one of our Doing What Works podcast guests is the same, with a little alteration for you. What was your first job, and how does what you learned in that position inform doing what works for you in your current role as a student in SMC's Homeless Services program?
So my first job, both paid and unpaid, was working at an in-home daycare center. And I did that like after school during high school. And I guess I would say the woman who runs the daycare center, Ramel, she is incredible and longtime family friend. And the way her program was run, she was paid through, well, a lot of the families, they received like government benefits. And so their children went there for free. But there are other parents who, just paid out of pocket. And so she had like a mix of, students from different, economic backgrounds. But she gave every child the same level of care. Obviously, some needed more, things than others. And so I guess she was very equitable. And I think that's what I saw then. Not every child got the same thing, but they all got the same level of care and love.
They all got what they needed.
They all got what they needed, yeah. And I think that's so important in this work. Some people, have privilege and have, things that, they need, basic, needs, and others don't. And so just making sure everyone's kind of like on the same playing field to, be successful.
I feel like you had a lot of those experiences when you were growing up, and I want to talk about your background. You came from a long line of, I would like to call them helpers, right? Your mom, your grandmother. Tell me about growing up around them and how what you saw them doing shaped what you wanted to do with your future career.
It's funny because I never really saw it as like I knew we were helping, but it was so just like the status quo is just what we did. I never really saw it as like a career opportunity, and I didn't really sort of feed the passion until later in life. Yeah, I just sort of fell into the work with my very unconventional journey here. But seeing my mom and my grandmother, I always just thought, they do this work and they love it. And my grandmother would always say, if you do what you love, it never feels like work. Again, it never sort of came full circle until, adulthood.
Tell me what they did. Tell me what your grandmother did and what your mom
So my grandmother,
did.
She retired from the Pasadena Health Department after like 30-something years. She was a substance use counselor. And it's very interesting because most of the counselors that worked with her, they were all in recovery. And so they had sort of that like peer experience and lived experience, and she didn't. And it was really uncommon and unheard of because they're like, how can you relate to this population if, you've never experienced this? But she just had a way about meeting people where they were. And I think that's why she excelled and people loved her. I mean, she would literally take people in, after they finished her program. If they didn't have a place to stay, she'd literally let them live with her. And so I saw that growing up. My mom as well, she's a nurse, and she was on the front lines during COVID at MacArthur Park, like doing COVID tests, giving out vaccines. And again, it's what I saw. And I think the seeds were planted early on, and somehow they were watered and fostered. And here I am today.
It became normal. It became so very normal for you, right? This is just what my family does. So
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't I then do something similar, right?
Yeah.
Well, tell me how you learned about SMC's Homeless Services program and why you were so drawn to it when you found out that it existed.
I was actually scrolling on LinkedIn. I just get on there. To me, it's like a safer social media platform. And I follow LASA. At the time, I wasn't actually following SMC, and they were promoting it. And I thought this was what really piqued my interest, is because it was offered and promoted as like low to no barriers.
And LASA is Los Angeles Housing Services Authority, right?
Correct. Yeah. And so I'm like, there's no way this could be real. Like, completely free, like nothing. All I have to do is like show interest and you're going to let me in. And I was really skeptical very early on, and even up until like receiving the email. And I'm like, is this real? And when we had our first Zoom meeting with everyone on, I was like, oh my gosh, this is really real. And then it sort of set in like, oh wait, I've committed to this. So yeah.
So it was interesting because I remember having this conversation with you where you said you seeing that there was even a homeless services certificate program, and the timing that you saw it was kind of serendipitous.
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
So my volunteer experience has always been volunteering with the unhoused, and it just, right now, I'm like, okay, what is my next act? I currently nanny, but I'm not, my girls aren't going to be small and need me forever. And so it's like thinking about, what is coming next. And seeing that, I was just like, oh my gosh, this could, be a path forward to, what I've been, I felt like I've been called to do, and, where my passions lie. And again, because it was so like low barrier, I was like, I could do this and see where it takes me.
You talked about the feeling of being on that first Zoom and saying to yourself, oh my goodness, this is real. This is happening and I've committed to it and let's go. Tell me about the first day in class. The first class you took, what was that feeling that you had when you stepped into that class, sat in the desk, and then what were you expecting?
I think I was like, wait, what did I get myself into? Because I just was overcome with like PTSD of like 11:59 deadlines from when I was previously in school, and, hitting those midnight deadlines. I was like, oh, wait, this is going to start all over again. I just kind of a wave of emotions. And then I just like seeing the very diverse group of students in this cohort. I was like, wow, like there are other people just like me who feel called to this very same thing. And I just thought that was beautiful and really, sort of representative of like LA, in particular, where, we have people from all over the world, all different cultures, all, different socioeconomic backgrounds. And so I was like, wow, like this could really work. Like I was very excited. So, yeah.
What was the camaraderie like amongst your cohort? I'm sure that you all started to kind of build some bonds and, maybe trauma bonded with deadlines and course assignment work. But how did those relationships start to develop through the program?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I didn't connect with so there's like four of us, myself, a woman, Romina, Faith, and Ty, and we couldn't be closer. It feels like we've known each other forever. We're just so obsessed with each other. But it sort of happened like just before, I think it was like our holiday break in December, where we really sort of like connected. We were trying to work on our like final that was coming up, and we all sort of sat near one another and had been put in a group project together. And it was just like, again, I'd never, like all of my best friends from like high school and college, none of them are in this work. And so I have different, things that I bond with them over, but I've never had someone who shares the same drive and has that fire in them. And so that's been a very different, but like beautiful experience. And so again, them having the same heart that I do for this work, it's like, oh my gosh, like you feel the exact same way that I do. But it's also like provided provided me with like a different perspective. And sometimes we don't always agree on things, and there's nuance and, different experiences. And so I think it's just beautiful. And I'm so grateful. That was like one of the things that we learned in the first semester was like, we're going to be in the trenches with one another. It's great to like make connections, and like these are the people you're going to continue to see if we all stay in this, field. And I'm so glad that I was able to form those connections very early on, and they are so solid.
Yeah,
They're
these are the folks you're going to lean on when you're doing this work. Was there a favorite course that you had? I know I was looking back, you're almost to the finish line, but looking back across the program, was there a favorite course that you had, and what made that course so special for you?
Honestly, no. It's like saying, who's your favorite kid, right? Like, I've loved them all for different reasons. Like our health equity class with Leapy, she just made it like so practical. And again, like that was that was definitely where we really sort of like started to lean on one another, because we're like, this work is heavy and you're gonna need people. And again, like my outside connections and friends and village, they don't do this work. They see what they see on TV, they hear what I talk about, but to be in it is so different. And so it was really beautiful to see that sort of come together, and Leapy really stressed like lean on, your cohort, like, participants. And then Dr. Elisa was just phenomenal. We would take these like 5-minute like meditation breaks, and we, with the presidential election, it just like she really held a safe space for us to just show up authentically and fall apart, come back together, cry, all the things. And Selena's she's a giant in this field. She's who we're currently being instructed by this semester. It's just, they couldn't have picked a better like instructor lineup. Literally the MVPs, all-star, like they're incredible. I've loved all of it.
I'm sure it was important to be able to learn from those who have been exactly where you're going to be, have even, gone up the ranks in their careers and in this particular sector. What did that mean to be able to even hear their experiences?
It's really fascinating because Selena particularly, they are from a different generation, and the way they learned is different than what the field looks like today. And so we are going to be coming in as like outliers in the way that we approach this work, and from a really like person and human centered place. And it's not about metrics and not about, the data and the numbers, or yes, like it's great. We need that stuff for like funding and just to understand what's happening. But like they're people, we're all people, and like to serve them from that space. And so I feel so privileged to learn from them. Like they've unlocked a whole new sort of like mindset for me.
What do you think this program did really, really well? And where are some areas that you say, maybe this could be done a little differently for the next cohort that comes in?
I think number one, making it so low barrier. If that continues and they continue to have the funding, I think that is so critical. Obviously, here in America, we don't have like free education like that. And so, down to like parking passes, like I was able to get my parking for free, laptops, books, like you name it. They have been so supportive, and the resources that we didn't even know was available to us as students has been really amazing. So that they knocked out the park with that. And then I think, again, this work is heavy, and the discussions that we're having in real time. There have been some really tense, conversations and discussions, but our professors have, again, just really held space for us to like go through these emotions, and from different backgrounds, we've all respected one another in a way, with love and compassion. But some people just inherently have privilege. And so acknowledging those blind spots, acknowledging those things, and being able to have those nuanced conversations, we were able to do that in such a healthy and respectful way here. And all of the faculty and administration, they all honored that. And I think that's really beautiful, and I loved it.
Those wraparound services really key,
yeah.
right?
100%.
Yeah. Talk to me about, we know that you're almost done. And I'm sure you're about to celebrate very, very, very soon. I'm sure it also went by extremely fast, right? What are you hoping to do once you have this certificate in hand? What's kind of the plan for you? Or do you even know at this point?
I don't know, honestly. The other really great thing that they did right, they connect us. So we have site mentors at our internship sites, but we also had in-class SMC mentors. And I feel really grateful that I have my mentor, and she's been really just incredible about figuring out what does, this next step look like, and just opening up doors for me, and really sort of fostering, okay, this may not be what you want to do, but you can try it out and see. And I've been able to get on Zoom meetings with, different people within her network to say, hey, let me pick your brain about this, or tell me about your experience in this role. So that's been really cool. And I feel really blessed and privileged to not have to immediately go out into the field, because honestly, it's actually really scary, especially right now with everything going on with funding in this sector and sort of the nonprofit world. Sometimes it's, unreliable and not very secure. And so I think if I had to be looking for something, I'd be on edge. But again, they really did provide sort of wraparound services. So I think anyone who's looking is going to find something, and something that fits and suits their strengths and, where they want to go. But I don't know. I think I'm enjoying not knowing right now, and that's okay.
How critical was it for you to be able to do this internship during the program? Really, internships give students an opportunity to see, is this something that I want to do? If I'm here in this world on a day-to-day basis, am I good with that? So talk to me about your internship experience.
So I've been interning at the Downtown Women's Center, which sort of exclusively serves the women in Skid Row, and it has been incredible. I love, can't say enough about that agency. And it really sort of highlighted the differences of volunteering through different organizations and things, and actually being out there. I know, I'd pass out food and, supplies and things like that. But this is different. I'm thinking of a woman, Cindy, who we outreached to, and just hearing her story and sort of what came after. She was robbed recently and lost all of her belongings, and we had gone out day after day looking for her. And when we finally were able to connect with her and found her, she literally sobbed, because she's like, I can't believe you guys have been looking for me. A lot of people talk a good game, but they don't back it up with actions. And it just really sort of sunk in for me that showing up well and showing up consistently is so critical to this work, and just sort of reaffirm I'm exactly where I need to be. This is exactly what I need to be doing. So I'm super grateful. Yeah, 100% that. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that must have been so. That seems like a kind of an aha moment,
yes.
right? Where you're no, I'm on the right path here.
Absolutely.
How many aha moments do you feel like you had during this program?
Oh, do you have time? So many. But I mean, they've taught me so much about myself, about my boundaries, my bandwidth, what I'm really capable of. I think I've really stretched myself in this past year in a way that I didn't know maybe I needed. And so I'm grateful. I think gratitude is what's really setting in now that we're at the finish line. Yeah.
What would you tell someone who might be considering?
Do it.
You don't even need to finish that question.
Nope. Do it.
What advice would you share with them? So let's say they're like, yep, you're right, I should do this. What advice would you share for them to set them up for success in the program?
Number one, having a village, whether that's your professors, different resources here on campus, your family, friends, whomever that may be, whatever that looks like, you need support. And it really, it's possible. Obviously, you can do this without it, but it makes it 10 times more manageable to do it with a support system. And I think it sort of mirrors what we see in the field, individuals who can be successful and, can get on their feet, but it's easier when you have help and support and resources. So I would definitely say that. Be patient, gentle with yourself. You're not going to always get it right. It's a learning curve. You're not going to know everything, and that's okay. If you knew everything, you wouldn't be coming here. Right. So, definitely just be patient, and be present. I think a lot, we would be oh, we have this deadline, we have that deadline, we have to do this, do that, do this. And sometimes you just forget this is what it's for. This is why we're here, and just being in that moment. So, yeah, that's what I would.
You mentioned that two of the professors, Selena Alvarez and Lipi Shimkata, they were talking about how differently they entered the sector and how that is going to be vastly different than how you and your cohort mates enter the sector. Can you talk about why this type of program, why this particular program is so important, and how important it would be to be able to have this expand to other colleges, other community colleges in the state of California, and even across the country?
I think, I'm hesitant to say I want it to expand because obviously, yes, we need this replicated, but the other side of that is replicating it without the fundamentals, without the Lipis, without the, Selena Alvarez's. It would be a disservice to the individuals. So unless they're spearheading it, unless they get them on board to go and
cloning them,
or just that's the other part of it is how do you figure out how to, sort of screen the type of individuals that can provide that same level of love and support and education in the same way. I think it's possible, but I would love to see that happen. Again, it's such a crisis here and a need. I would love to see it, but only if it's done right and it's, authentic to why we're here.
If you had to pick one or two words to describe your experience in this homeless services certificate program at SMC, what would that word or two words be?
Beautifully traumatic.
Oh, I love that. Beautifully traumatic. You want to expand on that?
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
As I've spoken about just the different challenges, and again, we were the inaugural cohort. We've had it in our mind from the beginning. We are the guinea pigs. They are testing all of these systems and practices and things on us. So that was the traumatic part of okay, wait, what do you mean I'm not starting my internship? Now when this is what, and figuring out logistics and, things like that. But just beautiful because we're here. And I recently wrote a paper sort of reflecting on this journey. And, I griped about how it was a little disheartening that we didn't finish with our full cohort. But I think that was, just divine intervention of weeding out, not necessarily the people who shouldn't be in this field, but who couldn't show up the way that,
or maybe just weren't ready yet.
Or weren't ready.
Yeah.
And in this particular time, and that doesn't mean, forever. And so, I beautifully traumatic, and I do it again.
I love
100%.
that. Beautifully traumatic. I'm going to start using that. Tamira Simpson, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing your journey with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Doing What Works, Innovations in Homeless Services. We hope today's conversation has shed light on the complexities of homelessness and inspired ideas for change. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Together, we can continue the dialogue and support the efforts to create lasting solutions. Stay tuned for more insights from the experts leading the way. Until next time.